How many of you attended Amit Chatterjee's session in the morning, the keynote? Great, okay, so you'll have some context of what we're talking about today. So as an introduction, my name is Neelesh Kamkolkar. I'm a Senior Product Manager and Planner with Microsoft. And today I'm going to really try and cover the essence of Visual Studio 2000 Team System from perspective of the capabilities that it has and how it enables you to kind of solve some of the problems Amit was talking about earlier in the morning. Before we get started, how many of you are using Team System today? Okay, all right. And one more, how many of you are development managers in the audience? Testers? No? Who are you? Project managers? Developers? Okay, perfect. Perfect. How many developers? Let's just do it. Okay, perfect. All right. Excellent. So, without further ado, Visual Studio Team System is a solution, application lifecycle management solution that really encompasses process, tools, and guidance to bring the different teams together in a collaborative fashion. So, some of the challenges we've talked about in the morning as part of the keynote was really, okay, we've moved from doing basic source control and working in a single person or 2-3 person dev team to collaborating across geographies, collaborating across project teams. And how do you kind of take a team that's working across different geographic boundaries and across different potentially lines of businesses to help deliver on the project success across the life cycle. So Visual Studio Team System really helps you, number one, collaborate effectively across team members, and we'll see some of those collaborative efforts today and how it makes that happen. Number two is really to help you bring software earlier in the life cycle. What I mean by that is really providing you high-quality testing capabilities earlier on in the development cycle, even as you're doing your initial development and as that application goes through the life cycle, right? And third, because there is a pre-built notion of a process template and guidance that Visual Studio Team System can leverage, it helps drive predictability in your project. So as I'm going through the project, am I sticking to my process? How am I doing against my goals that I set out to achieve? So let's look at kind of what makes up Team System at a very basic level. Team System has the Team Foundation server. So this is a server component that's kind of the hub of Team System. And it provides a single unified place for all of your activities that you do across your teams, right? And provide a kind of a view into that world based on kind of who you are, if you're a project manager, or if you're a developer, or you're a tester, etc. Team Foundation Server provides out-of-the-box capabilities around project management, work item tracking, version control, and team build, where what it's really doing is bringing together these capabilities from a central repository perspective, making it accessible to all the team members, right? And it's complemented by a rich reporting framework built on the SQL Cube that allows you to do advanced analysis and to really drive reports that you're interested in your organization. And when you first start to create a project, a team project within Team Foundation or Team System, you get to choose a process template that you want to adopt. So you can adopt, if you're working in the Agile methodology, you can adopt the Agile process or CMMI, or even many of the other processes that are out there, or even create something that's specific to your organization. The process template kind of gives the framework for that team project to work under and kind of define how that team needs to collaborate across your needs, whether it's different lines of businesses or whether it's across geographies. And on the client side, Visual Studio Team Suite allows different roles in your organization to access the server and everything that's inside the server, including things like work item, etc. So there's an architecture edition, development edition, there's a database edition, and a test edition. So these 4 editions form the client pieces for Team System that access kind of the server and work in conjunction with the server to deliver a lot of the 3 value props we talked about earlier, which is collaboration, better software quality, and then better predictability in your projects. And a lot of times, as you're collaborating within a team over a period of time, so if you're a project manager, right, you might have been using Microsoft Project as an example. Or if you're using Excel and you're familiar with Excel, you might be using Excel to do some of the work that you're doing. And most recently, I found one guy in finance that had some really amazing key combination that drew lines across Excel, squares, and cells that I didn't know that was even possible, right? So I guess the point here is, as you use your tools over a period of time, you've built up expertise, you've built up knowledge in those tools. And a lot of work actually happens in some of the Office suites, like Excel and Project, and Word, etc. So having extensions to the Office suite really enables the different people in your organization leverage the tools that they're familiar with. And more importantly, as you look at roles such as business analysts, right? So if you're a developer, you're very familiar with the Visual Studio IDE or your IDE interfaces that you use in day-to-day life. But as you go outside that development realm and you start talking to other team members, there's the need for kind of a higher level view, if you will. And the web access to Team Foundation Server does exactly that. So it's a way of looking at what all is happening in the Team Foundation Server. The same information that you get from your the clients is also available through the web access. And most importantly, right, as you look at other platforms that you might be leveraging. So it's not necessarily that in a large enterprise you're focused on one particular technology or other. So as you're looking at other technologies and working on other platforms, the extensibility framework that's built within Team System allows you to leverage all of the capabilities that are in the Team Foundation Server and really, again, bring across that collaboration across your team effectively, even as you're using other technologies. So in an essence, Team Foundation Server is kind of the server side. You set the server up and you create your team project, and then you'd install your team system clients based on, whether you're a developer, whether you're a tester, whether you're a database professional, or what have you. And when you look at team system overall, these are the 7 key benefits that come across, right? One is really collaboration and communication, making that more effective and more concise as you hand off information across dev to test and test over to maybe the DB engineer, etc., right? So, or even the project manager. So getting that information across in a timely fashion and in a clear fashion becomes an important part of collaboration. So the embedded process guidance that is part of Team System allows you to drive predictability in your project. So as a project manager or as an architect, if I'm looking at specific design patterns that I want my development team to follow, right, having policies around that. Having policies around the whole notion of how should a project proceed iteration over iteration. For those of you that attended Amit's session in the morning, you learned about value up process, which is really at every stage in the project delivering incremental value to the customer as opposed to a task decomposition way of doing project management. And every project, right, there's a ton of work you have to do. So there are a lot of work items, and managing the flow of these work items is often a challenge as you go from different traces off the work itself. So managing team workflow becomes easier with Team Foundation, Team Server, because the work item tracking is a central place, and it's a unified server that allows access to all of the work the team is doing, right, from one place. So you get a clear and consistent picture of the work that is part of that project, right? So really, managing team workflows is another area. We talked about using familiar tools. If you're a project manager and using Microsoft Project or using tools like Excel, you're able to leverage that as part of your day-to-day work. Ensuring quality early and often. How many of you run unit tests? Awesome. How many of you run load tests? That's actually quite good. I'm impressed. Here's the reason why I ask is, typically load and performance testing tends to kind of come towards the latter half of the project. You're about to go live and you start to think about, whoops, right? Somebody says that this has to scale to this limited number of users. And while the hope is you've architected all of that early on, there are issues that you run into depending on deployment hardware and how you're actually going to be making that application run in production. But when you look at overall quality of code, it's not sufficient to just run a set of unit tests. I think that's a great start, but how do you measure some of the complexities involved in code? So if, for example, if I have code that has a lot of branching, is it maintainable? We'll talk more about that, and leveraging all of those capabilities, doing static analysis of code earlier on in the lifecycle helps you deliver a more higher quality product when you go live. Integrate frequently. When if you run continuous integration builds as part of your process. Great. So when you look at this, so as I'm building my code over the life of the project, I want to integrate frequently. I want to continuously build a project so that I don't kind of create this whole huge bulge of work that I have to do from an integration perspective, and then kind of deal with the cost of integration of that. And then making real-time decisions is very important from the overall project perspective, right? Having real-time information about quality indicators, about code churn, about looking at what's happening overall at a project level becomes important, and Team System allows you to do exactly that. So let's start looking at each of these pieces, and what I'll do is I'll walk you through, I have a VPC image that's running on my laptop. I'll walk you through some of these capabilities. So collaborating and communicating effectively, right, is again part of getting that access to that unified server across the different roles in the team, and being able to leverage all of the project artifacts across the different team members in a consistent way is important. So let's quickly take a look at that. So what I have here is it's a VPC that's running TFS. By the way, this is the Visual Studio Team System 2008 VPC. It's available for download. It's a little bit big, but if you use some good download managers that are out there, that you can get that and you can play with this yourself. So this is basically TFS running inside the VPC, and I have the Visual Studio interface open here with one of the solution projects, right? So there's an e-banking in the Solution Explorer. So the Solution Explorer is probably what you're familiar with, where you work with your project and your solution. When you have Team System, you have the Team Explorer, which is a very similar view that gives you insight into all of your TFS entries. So for example, in this case, there's the e-banking one team project, and you can look at all the work items, the documents, reports, bills, and actually access the source control from there. So if I look at documents and process guidance, right? So what I'm doing is, whether I'm a developer or whether I'm another role in an organization, I want to be able to look at kind of what my overall process looks like. How do I collaborate? How do I drive predictability across my project? So I can get to it from either the process guidance node here, or I can simply open up excuse me, my team menu. I can open up my team portal, and I have the so I have the project portal that essentially shows me all of the details around what's available inside TFS. So I can look at everything I can look at from one of the client SKUs or from within TFS. I can look at it from the web as well. So this particular one is based on the CMMI process improvement model, and we'll dig into that here in a second. But essentially here, right, you can look at all of the information that you're interested in from the web access. So whether you're a business analyst or any other role in the organization, you can do that. So let's quickly go back. I'm going to minimize our web browser here. So driving predictability with integrated process templates, right? So we talked about leveraging out-of-the-box process templates that allow you as a team to work within that process framework. And at every point within your project, be able to enforce that or or have your team kind of work within those guidelines. And when you create your team project, you have the option of picking what kind of process template you want to follow. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So in this case, you have the process template. This is the Microsoft Solution Framework-based process template. So Team System ships out of the box with the Agile, MSF for Agile process, and MSF for CMMI process improvement. And if I look at, for example, the process guidance area, this gives me a clear idea of all of the areas within the process guidance that I have to follow as part of the CMMI process definition. And I can get a very clear picture of how I'm going to follow the various cycles and iterations in my project, right? So checking in daily bills, what am I doing as part of an iteration, and how do I eventually deliver on the overall project? If I go, for example, to the roles, I can look at, let's go ahead and look at, so this explains kind of all of the different roles within CMMI, process improvement. You can go to, for example, to the program management and a project manager role. Kind of gives you a clear picture of what the expectations are from a project manager perspective. So what it's doing is really within that CMMI framework, clearly allowing you to kind of bring your project within that framework and deliver to that particular framework. So having followed that kind of process model, and by the way, I mean, if you don't follow CMMI or Agile, if you follow some other model, you can leverage existing process models that are developed by partners and also customize it as well. But these are the two that come out of the box. Okay. So managing team workflow. So one of the most important things is you get a bunch of requirements from your line of business. They say, yeah, I need to build a online banking portal. Well, great. What does that mean, right? How do I take that big bucket and start to break that down into smaller pieces? But at the end of the day, as a dev manager, I'm figuring out tasks that my development team has to deliver on. As a QA manager, I'm figuring out specific test cases and tests that my QA engineers need to run, all of that. So really being able to leverage work item tracking to connect, if you will, across these different work item types is important. So the work items are of different types, right? You can have a work item that's a requirement, you can have a work item that's a bug, or you can have a work item that's a task. And I'll show you what I mean there in a second. But really it allows you to manage the workflow within your team more effectively as you are able to link these work items across. So let's take a quick look at this. Let me minimize my window. Because of the resolution, I'm going to have to scroll a little bit, so bear with me. But I felt that was a little better than folks in the back not even able to see it. So I think the previous presentation I was out there, it's hard to see in the back. Are you guys able to see that? Sort of, kind of, in the back? Okay. All right, we'll do our best. So, within the Team Explorer, right, I have all of my work items. And there are a set of queries that are available out of the box, and there's queries that I can build and customize for my team. And what we can do is look at, for example, all the proposed and active work items. So this is basically going out to the server and looking up all of the work items that are in a particular state and assigned to kind of all of my all the members of my team. So let's, for example, look at. Let me sort this by ID. So here's a new kind of requirement that popped up. So if I look at, so this is the show customer summary. So just think of a banking application where you want to show the customer summary that includes kind of all of the information about the customer within that application. So let's get some space here. Go ahead and close that. So in this case, you're looking at kind of a requirement that's come in. It's in proposed state, and that's the requirement now that's come in from the business. And I want, as a dev manager, I want to create a task that I can assign to a developer or a member on my team, and then link it to this particular requirement, right? So let's see how we're able to do that. So what I can do is go back to my Team Explorer. And what I want to do is basically add a new work item, right? And I want to add a new task that ties this particular requirement to the task that I'm just about to create. So in this task, I can go in and say, create summary page with all account information, right? And I can select kind of what discipline this is. Is it a development task? Is it a test task? Is it a user experience task? Right. So, and then I can assign it to a specific area path within my project. So it's part of my web UI for customers. Right. So what I'm doing as a dev manager is creating a task within Team System. And what I want to do is, at the end of the day, in the context of value up, I want to measure at the end of my sprint whether I have delivered this as a value up to the customer. So what I want to be able to do is go down here and then to the links, and I want to be able to link this particular task that I'm creating to the requirement we just saw before, right? So I can go in, I can browse or type in the work item ID. To go back and browse it, I think it was all proposed and active work items. That's a saved query, so I just run that. And then as I scroll through, there is a So here we go. So we assign it to the show customer summary. That was kind of the requirement that came through, right? So what I'm doing here, right, is so let's go ahead and say okay. What I'm doing is I'm creating that task. I'm linking that to a specific requirement that's come in, and basically that requirement is a work item type. Okay. So now that's linked in. I could go through, assign it to a particular developer, and you'd start doing work on that particular feature or capability. So you've had a requirement, you've broken that up into tasks, and then you can further break that down into specific features within that task that a developer can kind of work on and deliver on. So what you're seeing here is the ability for Team System to function as a link across the dev manager and the dev team and the people that are providing requirements to you, right? So let's go back to our PowerPoint and talk about leveraging familiar tools, right? So what if I want to work in Excel, or what if I want to work in my project environment? Can I do all of those things in Microsoft Project or Excel if I'm familiar with that, and have all of that be available in my central unified Team Foundation server? Right? So what I want to be able to do is leverage all of these capabilities that I have and tie in the experience that I have for Team Foundation Server to be available across the different roles in an organization. So let's go ahead and quickly take a look at how that works. So let's go back to our list of. This is your list of all proposed work that was on the table. By the way, once I've created that task in the previous example, I can go back, and that's part of the triage meeting. I sit down and say, do we want it? What priority do I have? You kind of follow the CMY process through to, again, drive that predictability we talked about earlier. So what I can do here is for example, select, let's select a few of these. Let's select a few of these and say that I want to open this project. So I want to open these in Microsoft Project, right? So when project launches, it basically has all of these elements that that I have selected in there available within project. Now, as a project manager, I'm in here, and what I want to do is start assigning these tasks to people, or start following my process to kind of drive this forward. So what's happening in the background is basically connecting, bringing those tasks into project, right? And again, it's leveraging the extensibility framework that's built into Team Systems. And I could go in as a project manager and start adding, duration, a number of days that I want to assign to each one of these. And I'm just picking these at random. And I hope the project manager really doesn't do that. It's a more thought out process than that. And I can go in and I can change, change who this belongs to. So I can pick a particular member of the team. The same names that I had seen in the other UI, right, is available here for me within project. Now I can change. So for example, to show customer queries. Let's follow that one requirement, right? So that was the requirement item ID with the number 46. So we assigned it. We made it a 2-day task, and it was a TFS setup was the user. Let's go ahead and assign it to Ed, right? And go back and so if I take this and then publish this to TFS, now I can do that very easily by, let's go ahead and excuse me, close that. And I'm closing the project file. What it's gonna ask is, do I want to save this project file and do I want to publish the results to TFS? So all of the changes that I'm making here get pushed to the TFS server in the back end. And it's again, all of these changes are available to all of my team members across my team. So my VPC is just a tad bit slower, so we'll just give it a second. But the idea is leveraging familiarity that I have with the tools that I've been using, right, gives me the ability to leverage my little tips and tricks that I've learned over a period of time, but at the same time, make sure that the information that's available to the rest of my team is consistent and it's available across all the team members. So let's go ahead. So I think it's just taking a little bit of time here to go through. Let's go ahead. You can do the same thing and view that in Excel as an example, right? So if you select those items and view it in Excel, you would have the same capability of bringing that up in an Excel spreadsheet and being able to work on that particular set of work items that you've selected within Excel and be able to publish those results to TFS. Right. So the way it happens is basically via an add-in that allows you to get the work items that are in my TFS server. I can look at kind of the different capabilities in terms of the links and attachments that I have for those work items, and be also able to publish the results back to TFS. Right. So what we're doing here is basically leveraging familiar tools that my different members of my team have, and then leveraging the TFS server in the back end to provide kind of the consistent view. So let's go ahead and close that. Okay. And as we're building these capabilities, right? So you're going through your project, you're building these capabilities. How can I make sure that at the end of the project, what I deliver to my customer is a high-quality application, right? It's amazing. There are a lot of statistics out there. If you browse the internet, it's staggering statistics like 74% of the time, the end user in production finds a problem for the first time. Okay, so just think about that number, right? So we're doing all of the testing we can earlier on. We're kind of looking and finding these bugs earlier on. That number should be a lot lower, right? And part of the challenge is also from a project perspective, the sooner I find all these bugs, the sooner I deal with them, within the life cycle, the less expensive it is for me as an organization. If I find a bug at design time, it might cost me $10. If I find it at dev test time, it might cost me $100. But if I find that bug in production, that is hell to pay, right? And it's just not the $1,000 it might cost, but the brand reputation of your company. Imagine all of those new snippets you've heard about, various online portals going down. So there's a lot at stake when an application doesn't perform in production. So how do you bring a lot of that quality testing earlier in the process? So what I'm going to do is looking at time. Let's go through real quick and run through a kind of a performance scenario, and we'll look at some of the testing aspects of. Okay, so let me go ahead and close these. Since I am running on a VPCE, every little bit is going to help me here. So for the e-banking application, right, I can do very basic things like excuse me, calculating code metrics, right? So static analysis helps me identify quality metrics ahead of the time within my project to allow me to understand how my overall quality of my solution is before it's too late. So as I do static analysis, let me go ahead and hide this. Let's undock and take a look at these metrics here. So as I do static analysis, right, I'm going through my whole solution, and there's various metrics. So maintainability is a metric in terms of how maintainable is my code, right? In this case, the higher the values, the better it is, right? And cyclomatic complexity measures the number of branches. I have a class, and within my class, I have a couple methods, and if I have 100 branches in there, I'm doing something wrong, right? But often these things I can't measure unless I run some kind of a code metrics type of a static analysis tool that helps me understand that there is some level of work that I need to do to make sure either I refactor or I do what I need to do from a business logic perspective the right way. And the depth of inheritance again is important. If I have a really deep inheritance tree, any changes that I make at any level in the cost hierarchy, I got a lot of problems in terms of reworking that. And if I have to have that get reflected in my class hierarchy. So a lot of these measures, again, kind of give you an idea of how well maintainable, how easily maintainable, and how good a piece of code do I have as part of my solution, right? So these are very simple things that you can do kind of within Team System out of the box. Now, additionally, within Team System, one of the things you want to be able to do is you're writing unit tests, right? A lot of you said you're writing unit tests. Not these days, especially when you're driving service-oriented architectures and you're doing a lot of B2B work, you may not have a UI to test this stuff, right? So how do you load test some of your applications, right? You're building unit tests. Wouldn't it be great if you can reuse those assets and make those part of a load test, right? So Team System, from a quality perspective, allows you to do load testing by leveraging your unit tests. And you can do this across any number of unit tests that you have. You can do web testing that allows you to measure performance of a web page. So let's go through that real quick. So I go over to my solution tab. So there's an accounts test class here. It's a unit test, right? What I want to be able to do is let's go to the test menu, and let's add a new test. Right? I want to add a load test, and of course I can give it a name and a description. By the way, there's several different tests I could do. I could do an ordered test. I could do a manual test. I could do a web test. So Team System allows you to do a lot of these different kind of tests. So within my load test, I get to define. It's a wizard that walks me through setting up a scenario for my load test, right? And for those of you that have been doing load testing, you're probably familiar with some of these concepts. So using think times for recording, etc., and think times between test iterations. Do I want a constant load, or do I want to step my load up or ramp them up in steps? And then the test mix is something that's new in Team System 2008, where it allows you to mix the load based on either the total number of tests that you have, or based on the number of virtual users, or user pacing, right? How often is it that the same user goes to Amazon and buys the same book over and over again, right? So different users are coming to a website to do different things. And you can, by the way, parameterize your data. You can have a data source attached that pulls in different data values and runs the load test based on the data that you provide the tool. So you can do the load modeling here, and then go through and say, what do I want to unit test, right? So what do I want to load test with? So this is a place where I can start to add all of my unit tests. So I can go in and add a specific unit test that I have. So there is a get rates, right? That's a unit test I have on that particular solution. So the idea here is you're leveraging a lot of the unit tests that you have done, and your QA teams can leverage it to drive load earlier in the life cycle, right? And what I'm able to do is then go through and finish up setting up the performance counter. So here I want to say, what do I want to measure as part of the load test? Do I want to measure memory, CPU, network I/O, disk I/O, etc.? So go through that process and then go ahead and run your load test, right? So what I want to do is, let's go ahead and cancel this. What I want to do is go ahead and show you the record and replay for a web test as well. So basically in the unit test scenario, if I clicked finish, I would have run a 25 user load on a virtual PC. I just didn't want to do that, right? So let me quickly show you the web test. So if I go ahead and add, so what I could do is, again, at a certain level, I could even right-click, add a new test, right? So I can do that, or I could come in from the test menu as well. So if I add a web test, basically what I'm doing is want to be able to record and replay a web application. So if you have ASP.NET applications that you're building, this would be a great way for you to leverage a lot of the testing that's available within Team System already. So let me quickly go ahead and launch my application. This is a simple web app that has a banking application that has an AJAX call in the back end that's getting the current interest rates for a particular customer. So it's a fairly straightforward demo app. So I could go ahead and get the current rates. Now there's back-end processing happening. So if your end user was finding this problem in production, this is embarrassing, right? So the end user is just sitting there waiting for data to return. Now, wouldn't it be nice if you had caught this earlier on? But basically you see that these kind of issues, the sooner you find out, the better it is. What I could do is quickly go ahead and record. Excuse me. Go ahead and go to the recorder. So that's my recorder, right? So I can go ahead and localhost 1990. So that's my default bank page. So I can go in and click through and execute different transactions. I could log in. I could parameterize that login data with data from a database or from an Excel sheet or a other file format. But as I'm recording, basically you see that the steps are getting recorded. And what I can then do is stop the recording and then go back and play that back again. Right? So we're detecting the dynamic parameters for load testing, and if you had session variables or other things, session IDs and cookies, etc., it would get parameterized here. And then you can replay that particular test back. But note that all of this is happening from within team system. You're not going outside anywhere. Part of the challenge with multiple tools in use is often that developers, the tester comes to you and say, hey, this is not working, it's taking 10 seconds, right? And typically I've been developer for half my career now. And it's like, well, hey, it works on my machine, right? And can you reproduce it? Can you show me more data? That's kind of the dialogue that you typically have with a tester, right? But basically I can go back in and I can rerun this test. And it allows me, so you can see that the browser is playing it back over here and getting the results for that particular test. Okay, so in this case, the test passed. What I want to do is show you another new capability in Team System 2008 that allows you to, for example, on a test result from a loader web test, I can create a performance session or even a unit test for that matter. And what a performance session is going to do is it's going to create a profiling session for that particular web test. And by default, you can do it based on instrumentation that allows you to kind of insert code at JIT time and get more information about performance. So I can go through and create a performance session for that particular solution, and then go back and rerun the test with profiling. So over here, this says launch with profiling, right? So what I can do is go ahead and launch that particular application or that test with profiling turned on from within my team system solution. And it's going to go through and run through the code analysis, run through the test itself, and collect some data about the internals of the application, right? So where am I spending my time? So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So it's starting to run the test. So you see it over here. It's attaching to the actual process and starting to collect profiling information about that particular application. How many of you use the load testing capability in Team System? You? Okay. Okay. So it's going through the process, and it's collecting data. And when I have the performance results, I can drill in and look at a call stack that tells me where time was going within the application, right? So it helps me understand where time is going for the particular test that I just ran. So there you have it. So that particular session is actually that's still running. Yeah, it's still running. Just taking some time running on the VPC. But the idea is, from a quality perspective, doing all the things earlier on in your life cycle that allows you to kind of get a more higher quality application out to production. So let's go back to the present while that's finishing up. So we talked about code metrics, we talked about maintainability, we talked about code complexity, cyclomatic complexity, we talked about being able to leverage your unit tests as part of your load tests and running load tests based on a lot of the work that you're already doing from a unit test perspective. And also the performance hot path that gives you kind of the critical path of where time is being spent within that particular application. So what I want to do is, I have about 10 more minutes. How many of you work on databases or develop database applications? That's a significant number of folks. So what I want to do is quickly run through a couple of the other capabilities. So by the way, a lot of what I'm covering here, it's not even the tip of the iceberg, right? It's a very small portion within the hour that I have that I can cover. but I would strongly encourage you to go out there, download the VPC, and play with it yourself. There's a lot more that you can see. What I want to do then is take some time to work through the reports, and then I want to talk about the database edition. How many of you use that, by the way? Anybody use the database edition? One. Okay. So let's quickly talk about reporting, right? So there's comprehensive business intelligence that's built into Team System that allows you to reap the benefit of that unified server that all your team members are connecting to, and you know, your developers might be doing source control with it, your project managers might be managing your work items, or your testers might be leveraging and defining test cases within that. So all of that information being available in a single place is a huge benefit from a team and collaboration perspective, right? And reporting is built into Team System. And if I just switch over, let me go ahead and bring a couple of reports here. So we looked at the web access portal. By the way, that portal is based on SharePoint, and it's great if you want to access a lot of the stuff over the web. So if I go back and go back to my project portal, I can go to specific things within reports. So quality indicators is an example, right? Shows me, it might be a little hard for you folks in the back to read, but it kind of across the project timeline and across my builds, it shows me how many tests have passed, how many tests have failed as the bars. And each of those lines shows various things such as code churn, code coverage, active bugs that are in my system. So at a single glance, I have a very clear idea of my overall quality indicators that I have for my project and whether there is risk associated with the project that, you know, I'm coming towards the end of my iteration and I'm seeing a huge spike in active bugs, right? Or the code churn is really high at that point. So these are some of the things that you want to look at and say, well, should I rearrange resources, or is there things that I can do? Why is the code churn so high so close to the end of the iteration, right? So asking those kind of questions really help you kind of drive towards a successful project. So this kind of shows you, this is one example of the report. So the reporting capability is built on top of SQL Server Cubes. There's a lot you can do, and there are a lot of reports that are built out of the box within Team System. So what I want to do at this point is, let me go ahead and close some of this and reclaim some of the resources, because I think my VPC is, core VPC is having a hard time. Okay, go ahead and exit. What I want to show you from a database perspective, right? The fundamental problem with databases is you have a schema that's associated with your project, right? Your DBAs, you work with your DBAs or your database developers, and you create what tables you need and how you want your database structured and what primary keys you need, etc. Now, once that application is deployed in production or a different place, you want to make a change. Okay? You go in and you decide that. So your business says, no, we want to track a work phone number. We also want to track a mobile number, right? Now, the biggest problem you have there is going to the DBA that's running and managing that database in production and saying, well, here's what you need to change, right? That's like he's pulling his hair off because he doesn't know which all tables that particular element is in there. You know, you're not helping the DBA. What the database edition does, I'm just closing some of these here. What the database edition does is really helps you create a script, a database script that you can hand over to a DBA that can enforce some of the changes that you're requesting them to make, right? So let's go ahead in here and, excuse me. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and create a new project. And I don't have an existing database schema. So what I want to do is bring an existing schema in. I'm going to make a small change to it, and then we'll see how that change can be shared with DBA. In addition, we'll take a look at a data generation plan that I can create that I can use for testing. So I want to create a database project based on SQL Server. Let's do SQL 05. I could care less. I mean, I could call these meaningful names, but in the interest of time, we'll skip that. So once that's set up, we'll import the schema from an existing database that's on that box. So far, any questions as I'm waiting for that stuff to happen? Yeah. So there are extensive. There is an extensively framework that's built into TFS that you can leverage if you needed that. You can build it, but out of the box project. So you can tell project where the TFS server is, and there's integration built across that. Again, leveraging that same extensively. So you should be able to, as long as all of your information is within TFS. Yeah. Right. So for example, some of the reports, like I didn't go through all of the reports that we have, but you should be able to, as long as you're working off the TFS server and everything is in there. Okay. Oh wow! Finally. So you know what this is remember we ran the performance test. We created a performance session for the load test. This is finally finished and it's come up with the report, and I think it's going to go through some of the other capabilities here. I think it's time for me to do a quick restart. Any other questions? Okay. How many of you have been exposed to this level of detail of the team system before? Okay. So hopefully the session is helpful to you guys in terms of knowing what's out there, knowing what's a part of team system. As you kind of go back to your regular work days and you go back and talk to your colleagues, think about the team system capabilities and how you can incorporate some of that stuff in your projects that you're doing today. Okay, so I'm going to go back and let's do the thing again real quick. It's a database project. Create a SQL, leverage a SQL 2005. Okay, so it's basically created a template database project in here. There's nothing in here. There's no tables, none of that stuff. What I want to do is I want to go in and kind of really get a particular data set in here. So let's see if I have mine. So let me scroll over so you can see this. So I can import in a database schema from an existing database. And as I do that, one of the things I want to do is point to an existing database. Let's go ahead and get this from our local host. And there's the AdventureWorks database. Let's pick that. Say OK. So all I'm doing is bringing in a kind of a master copy of the schema, if you will, right? Finish that. So how many of you face this problem, by the way, with the database schema being out of sync? Run into it? No? Yes? Okay. So we're going through and getting all of the elements of that database into our project. And you know, you can think about version controlling this stuff and all of that as part of your project management, right? So I've gotten all of the elements of the database. If I look at the schema objects, I can see all of my stored procedures. I can see all of my kind of tables. Let me bring that window here, so that way you can see it a little better. Right, so I can see all of the things within that database and all my constraints, my indexes, and all of my triggers, etc. Now, if I go to the schema view, I can quickly take a look at all the tables. I see that there's a person address table, and I can go to the various columns in it, and I take a look at, for example, so let's scroll down here. Oh, let's actually pick person contact. So what if I wanted to go in and say, I want to change this, right? From this being just a phone definition of a phone, I want to kind of introduce a notion of a mobile phone, right? So I want this to be kind of the mobile phone, and then I want to add another entry, which might be a regular phone. So if I wanted to make a simple tweak like that, right? I'm able to quickly do this from within the database edition, and it walks me through the different changes that I have to make across my database schema, right? In every different table and every different stored procedure call that particular column name might be referenced, I can go ahead and make those and review those, and I can apply those changes. And what it's going to do is apply those changes and help me kind of create a specific set of SQL scripts that I can then hand over to the DBA and say, hey, here's what I've changed, and here's a script that allows you to kind of make that happen, right? And once I have that, right, the other kind of the challenge with databases that you often find is what's changed, right? I've made this change now, but if there were bigger changes from what's in production and what I have now, how do I know that? What I can do is I can do a quick schema compare, and I can pick the project and then choose the existing database, right? So in my project, I have a database schema that has the changes I've made. I'm just comparing that with the existing database schema that I have, right? So when I go through that, it kind of really gives me a whole delta of what's actually changed and things that these are skippable, right? So these actions, the change doesn't really impact those areas of the database at all. And I can kind of look at specific areas that I need to kind of run through an update script or what have you. Right? And the last thing I want to quickly show you is the ability for you, for example, the columns within that table with specific data values, right? So here I see that, let me go ahead and close mine. So here I see the different tables. There's the person contact table that I have. And if I scroll down, I can start to take a look at the particular plans that I have for that particular, here, let me move it here. So I can look at the data generation plan starts to show me kind of the different elements. So there's a first name, there's a middle name, and a last name. All this looks garbled, right? But what I can do here is really start to use things like regular expressions, data that I might already have stored some other place, and generate unique names. So this is basically based on a seed value from a random generator that we use to kind of create these values. So what you're able to do is very quickly, I mean, look at how much time I've taken for this, right? Less than 5 minutes, given kind of my VPC situation, is being able to import an existing database schema, being able to make a change and give a DBA a script that he or she can run to make the change for that particular change that you've made to be reflected, and also be able to create data generation plans and do schema comparisons. So, so I think without further ado, kind of in conclusion, right, the key takeaways for you is team system is more than source control. Team system is more than an IDE. Team system really allows you to, number one, bring that collaboration across multiple stakeholders within your organization. Based on a lot of stuff that we've seen, again, we haven't covered even the kind of the tip of the iceberg, as I said before. Team system brings quality earlier in the life cycle, allows you to do more testing and help you deliver better quality software. And third is leveraging a lot of the out-of-the-box process capabilities and guidance. It becomes kind of the effective tool for the application lifecycle management as you're building projects and applications through your lifecycle. Right? Thanks a lot. I'll be around if you have any questions. Thanks for attending.